to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, conceal carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the War Room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And I am back. Once again, I am tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And we are in the middle of 60 degrees. I'm going to repeat that. Almost 60 degrees in the middle of November. That is uncalled for. Or uncalled, well, that's unheard of. That's the word I'm looking for. That is unheard of in Idaho. So I'm enjoying that. I spent a lot of the time today out on the range with a few different classes. In fact, the last week had actually been really pretty busy, which is kind of refreshing. It was a little bit of a slower summer, so it's nice to see that people are actually getting out and wanting to take some classes now. Harvest is over, school has started, vacations are done, and as weird as it is, you would think that I would slow down over the holidays. I do not slow down over the holidays. I actually get pretty busy. I mean, you know, a few days before and a few days after the holidays, it slows down. But I mean, during the holidays, I just keep moving right along. I keep getting people signed up for classes, and it's just, I don't know what does it, but man, I will take it. I will take it. My Patriot Defense checking account likes it. Okay, got to keep the business rolling. I have got my women's shooting academy classes up, and they are live, and you can sign up for them. As the other one rolls to the end, I'm getting people signed up for next year. And those, I tell you what, those signups are just, my phone's ringing. They're coming in like crazy. So that's a pretty hot commodity that I'm pretty excited about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about just a few things that kind of have happened, have showed up in the last over the last week or so. For example, today I had a gentleman come out and he wanted to use the range. And you know, for just a small fee, it's like $10 a person for an hour. You can come use the range, you know, sign the waiver. I'm here to just make sure everything's, you know, safe, insurance reasons. And he's come and done this before with his buddies. And today he showed up with his parents. And I thought maybe his parents, I don't know if they were just visiting or I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but they showed up and he had just bought a new gun and he had just bought a Taurus, I believe it was a G3, and he had brand new to him. He was super proud that he bought this gun, and that's fantastic. And I know his parents were a little reserved. And after they signed their liability waivers, and we were heading outside the range, you know, I'd gone over the safety rules with him. We were heading outside. He asked me, he goes, "Hey, look, I know this isn't necessarily a class, but can you kind of go over a couple of the things that we need to do as far as gripping and trigger press? I think my mom wants to take a turn on the gun, and she wants to try it out. And she's never fired a gun before, never fired a handgun before." And as we were walking out, I just got this feeling, you know, it all worked out in the end, but I got this feeling from his mom, from this woman, that she didn't really want to be there. And as we were walking out, you know, I'm just being happy-go-lucky myself, just kind of helping out, glad that people are here. And as we're walking out to the range, she asked me, she goes, "What are your qualifications? What are your qualifications for doing this? What's your history? What's your background?" And I just kind of rolled with it, you know. And a part of me just kind of bristled up because I really hate that question. I hate that question because I'm not military and I'm not law enforcement. And I know I've talked about this before, but, you know, something seemed a little different about this question. And I just said, "Hey, look," I said, "I've been doing this for almost 9 years now." I said, "You know, I really am passionate about shooting." And I went and I got NRA, I'm an NRA certified instructor. And actually, if I'd known what's going to happen with the NRA, which we'll discuss coming up, I wouldn't be an NRA certified instructor. But here we go. Here we are. Yet I am an NRA certified instructor, as much as I don't like to talk about it. And I told her that. I told her, yeah, I'm an NRA certified instructor, and I was just doing that to get some street cred and strengthen my knowledge base, and so I could help people. And then it just kind of worked into a business. And I said, so I've been doing this, and I told her, I said, man, I held women's shooting academies all year long. I do permit classes every month. I do tons of, private classes, safety classes for kids, safety classes for adults, help you find your first gun type of classes. You name it, I've probably done it. And she didn't say anything. She just kind of looked at me, and she just kind of gave me that almost like a look that could kill, kind of like she just was not happy to be here. She looked a little disgusted, and we walked out to the range, and it didn't stop here. We walked out to the range, and I had to run and grab some targets really quick. And I always have my ouch pouch, which is my first aid kit, right? And it's always there, and we always talk about it. Hey, this is what's in here, and if something happens, this is what we're gonna do, and this is who's gonna call 911, and this is what you need to say to law enforcement, right? And so I go over all that. That's kind of like standard protocol for my class. And as I get through with that, and her son is like, getting his ammo out and stuff like that, and we're kind of talking with him, she pulls me aside real quick, and she's like, how many people have hurt themselves on your range? I'm like, what do you mean how many people have hurt themselves on my range? How many people have hurt themselves with a firearm on your range? I mean, you've been doing this a while. And I'm like, short of just maybe someone getting bit by the slide, 0. Right? No one's been shot. I told her, I said, no one's been shot on my range. I said, I try to keep control of all the situations, and we have safety protocol and safety rules in place, and we go over them, and I'm right here. And if I have larger classes, I have more people. And she just kind of like looked at me. And I'm just like, this is getting kind of a weird vibe off this. But I just kind of moved on, because I could tell that the young man who showed up, and he was an adult, obviously, younger than me, so I call him a young man. I'm getting kind of old anyway. And I said he was excited to be there, and I went over all how to handle the gun safely. I went over how to press the trigger. I went over how to line up the sights. I went over, how, the right grip and the trigger press, all that stuff, and the stance and everything. And that's not something I normally do. When someone gives me $10 to come use the range, I figure they kind of know all that. Or somewhat they know all that. And I typically just touch on the safety points with them. And I'm just out there, eagle eyes, watching them like a hawk, making sure everything goes great, right? I mean, it's kind of a business thing. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I'm there to make money as well, that kind of thing. You want some knowledge, you pay for the knowledge. I mean, I'm really nice, and I like to help people, and so that part of me just kind of jumps in there from time to time, and that's what I do, is I help people. But I just kind of, something told me, and the kid actually, he asked me, he goes, hey, can you go over just some pointers really quick? And I actually took the better part of about 40 minutes going over this stuff. And I could see the look of relief in this kid's eyes. And his parents were just eating it up. His dad didn't say anything. His dad was nodding his head yes in agreement. And his mom just kept looking at me. And so we got to the point where it was the kid's, turn to shoot. And I was like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to stay down here and watch everything like a hawk. It's something is different. Not that something's not right, but something is different down here. Usually what I like to give people their room, their space a little bit. And I would step up out of the range, and I'd stay up above, usually leaning against the fence, kind of, really close still, but watching them, right? I don't want to hover over someone when they're shooting, right? It just kind of makes them nervous. And if I see something blatant, I'll go down and fix it. But I felt like I needed to be there. So I kind of watched him. I treated it like a class. And he loaded his rounds, and he went to pick the gun up, and I said, whoa, back off a minute. Let me show you. Let me fix your grip. And then I noticed when he picked the gun up, he picked it up with his left hand and loaded it with his right, even though he was right-handed and vice versa. And I went ahead and had him slow down, and we unloaded it, and I talked to him about handgun manipulation. I went over everything with him. And he was shooting, and he kind of likes to shoot kind of fast a little bit, and he was excited. It was a new gun. And I talked to him about it. We adjusted some stuff. We slowed some stuff down, and he started, he was hitting the paper, right? But when I slowed him down and we adjusted a few things, he hit the bullseye a couple times, and he really kind of dialed it in a lot tighter. And he had slowed down, and he had a little more control. And So that was good. And he got done and he was loading another magazine. And I hear I hear this woman, his mom, say, excuse me. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. What can I help you with, ma'am? And she stuck out one of her hands, her right hand. She turned it sideways like a gangster shooting a gun, right? And she goes, so do you ever teach people to shoot like that? I mean, I see that in the movies. That's a gangster thing. Is that how you shoot? Is that how you teach people to shoot here? And I'm like, no, ma'am, that's not how I teach people to shoot. Should you be able to know how to shoot with one hand? Well, sure, but you need to start with two hands. And she kind of looked at me, and her husband was kind of smiling and nodding, and I said, what you see in movie, I said, that's purely cinematic theater, right? I mean, maybe that happens in the cities, but I mean, that's a movie thing typically, right? Or someone who really doesn't know what they're doing. I said, when you shoot one-handed, it is a thing where people will, if they shoot one-handed, I told them, I said, extend your strong arm. They're all right-handed. Extend your right arm. Make a fist, squeeze it. Now slowly start to turn that fist inwards, and you can feel your fist, your grip, get tighter. But if it goes all the way over, right, it goes away. Well, that's because everything lines up, better in your arm. And as you go at an angle and you get that tighter grip, I said, now that is a viable way to shoot one-handed. And you'll see a lot of people do that. That's an accepted, one-handed shooting method in the firearms world, in the community. I said, but never would I have someone turn the gun completely sideways. Gun's not going to function well. It's just stupid. You're wasting ammo. You're not going to be accurate. That's strictly an in the movie thing, or you just really don't know what you're doing. And she kind of looked at me and kind of nodded her head, and I don't know, something was a little off. And so her son this kid shot a few more times, a few more magazines, and he enjoyed it. He was having a good time. And I kind of stood back and I spoke. I was trying to lighten the mood a little bit as we're watching him. And I was speaking to the parents saying, yeah, I know he's doing pretty good. He needs to fire some more rounds and he needs to, practice some more, but he does this, and this right. And I just talked about safety and everything else. Well, he got done shooting and he asked his mom. He said, Mom, do you want to shoot? And she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to shoot. And I just was kind of like watching and listening. And he's like, come on, Mom. I said, ma'am, you don't have to shoot. I said, I'm not going to make you shoot. I'm not here to make you shoot. But I'll stand right here with you, and I'll make you 100% comfortable as I can. And I said, we'll only load one round. We'll just put one round in. And she goes, well, first of all, I don't know how to make the thing on the top move. I said, you don't know how to rack the slide? She goes, yeah. My son tried to help me do that, and I struggled with it, and it's stiff, and it's hard. And so I showed her how to do it properly and how to do it safely. And she still struggled with it, but she could kind of get it. And I said, I tell you what, ma'am. I said, do you want to shoot this gun? And she goes, yeah, I'll try it once for my son. I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to shoot one round. I'll load the round in the magazine for you. I will insert the magazine into the gun for you, and I will rack the slide for you. I will then hand the gun to you. You simply have to take the safety off and fire the gun using the grip that we talked about and how to line up the sights. And I said, we'll do the one round just because it's safer, because you're new, maybe you're nervous, and you're new, and that's fine, and just one round. I said, and I'll be here to help you every step of the way. And I stood next to her, and I helped her. And she got out there, and I made sure she understood how to use the sights. We'd already talked about it, but I just kind of reinforced it. And I talked her through the trigger press, take up the slack, find the wall, hold it there for just a split second, and slowly add pressure till the trigger breaks and the gun fires. And she did that, and she hit the paper. She didn't hit the bullseye, but she wasn't too far away from the bullseye. And the gun jumped out of her hand, right? I mean, new people, when they shoot, they don't realize that you actually got to get a pretty good bite, a pretty good grip on the gun. And she did that, and everything was great. And, it startled her, and she kind of went, whoa, but she did it. And I think she felt a little relieved afterwards when she got done doing it. And then we handed the gun, we loaded again, and the guy's dad, he took about 3 shots, and I was there to help him as well. And he was real quiet. He never said anything like the entire time. And then the kid, he loaded the gun and he took some more shots. And as we're standing there, we got done shooting and the kid's kind of cleaning up everything. I kind of just commended him talking to the parents, and I was like, he shoots okay. He just needs more practice. And then I figure out all along what I can't put I think I kind of knew it, but I couldn't put my thumb on it. And she goes, I'll be honest with you. And she was actually talking a little more civilly to me at this point. And I think she felt more comfortable. I think maybe she realized I wasn't some yahoo. But this is what she said to me. She goes, I'll be honest with you. I'm me and my husband here, we're his parents, and we're very anti-gun. But he's an adult now, and he's come out here once before, and he shot, and he enjoyed it, and he had a good time. And he wanted to go out and purchase his firearm on his own. He's an adult. He can do what he wants. We aren't necessarily against it, but it's not something we would recommend him to do. And she goes, I tell you what, it's really nice that you have a nice place, a nice safe place for him to come and do this. And you gave him some instruction when you probably, and she looked at him, she goes, you probably didn't have to, did you? And I was like, nah, really, but I don't mind. I want people to enjoy it. I want people to be safe. She goes, it's nice to know he's got a nice, safe place to shoot. And then she just started talking about guns, and I was saying how, he's pretty good. He just needs more time behind the trigger, and we joked around about him needing to buy some more ammo before the price went up again, and everyone left. And I could have, because she was being a real kind of a jerk to me to a certain extent. Real kind of short answers, kind of like sharp questions, kind of questioning absolutely everything. And I could have turned that away. I could have turned that around on her and just been a jerk right back, but I didn't. And it came out that I think that was the best thing to do in the end. I think that it made that boy's life a little easier, right? I don't know if he still lives at home or not, but it made his life a little easier. And I think maybe his parents will see that he kind of enjoys shooting and that you can do it safely. And I like to think that I helped influence someone who might have been, who was a self-proclaimed anti-gun. So that's kind of how my morning went. And it kind of, at first, it put me on edge. And then at the end, when they were leaving, I was like, that's not too bad. That turned out better than I thought. You just need to be patient. You need to talk to someone, right? I didn't know that they were anti-gun at the beginning, but I guess it was there. And if I would have paid attention more, I would have figured that out. But just because someone isn't agreeing with what you do as far as when it comes to firearms doesn't mean you need to be a jerk to them. It means that we need to discuss things with them. We need to show them how it can be fun and safe and an enjoyable pastime or hobby. And that's what we need to do. We need to educate. So many people are not educated. She was obviously not educated on the fact that, hey, what you see in the movies, the gangsters, that's not a viable way to shoot, right? That there's a safe, controlled way of doing things. And that's what we need to get across to people. Speaking of instructors, right? And like me, and I feel like I'm celebrating myself here, and I'm not. I mean, that's honestly, if you speak to any of my students, I think they're probably going to tell you the same thing. This is how I do business. This is how I instruct. This is what I do. I try to take things slow. I'm understanding, and I work with people. That's what I enjoy doing. So the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple other instructors. I've had a couple other students, a husband and his wife, come and take a class from me. And they live here, but they also live down. They also live in Nevada, but they're residents of Idaho. So they bought some guns and they took some classes down in Nevada, right around Arizona. They live on the border. I can't remember exactly where. And they found a woman that is an instructor, and they took some classes from her. And over the course of the 2 times that they've come out and take a couple classes from me, they've said things about their instructor. And I tell you what, it boggles my mind sometimes how other instructors are. And I'm not picking on that. I guess I am picking on this woman, but let me just tell you what we were told. Okay, now this couple, they're a little older, right? And when people get a little older and they're into shooting, sometimes they shake a little. when they're nervous, they shake a little. Sometimes naturally they shake, right? I've seen it a lot. And you have to work with that. They want to shoot. They want to learn. You have to work with that, right? You have to explain things, okay? Sometimes when people, I don't care who it is, are learning to shoot for the first time, you have to explain things over and over and over again because they have to finally figure out how to retain things. And a lot of times people don't retain things. They were telling me about this instructor, and they were down there in like Arizona or Nevada or whatever. It was really, really hot, and they were going out to this private ranch to shoot. This instructor had permission to go out there and shoot, and these people had this nice car. Now we're going to stop right there for a second. We're going to go backwards a little bit to the fact that when this gentleman called me up looking for a class for him and his wife, they talked about he was really concerned about, he'd never been out here. He was really concerned about the road getting out here. Like, am I going to be able to get my car down it? Is it bumpy? Am I going to need 4-wheel drive? Am I going to get stuck? And I'm like, what is going on? I said, no, sir, it's just a gravel driveway. You'll be fine. And we got through that. But when they showed up, they were telling me that when they went to this private ranch to shoot, the road was horrendous. It was rough. He could barely get the car down it. There was so much brush sticking, poking out into the road. They almost had to make their own road. And so this gentleman, he's a little older, he had to get out, and it was 100-something degrees out. He said it was super hot, and he had to break branches, and they had to like bushwhack their way to where they needed to shoot in their little car. They didn't want to destroy their little car. I mean, I get that. I understand that. And then he almost fell down a few times because it was rough terrain. It was rocks, you name it, right? Well, by the time they got to where they needed to be to shoot, he was plumb wore out. And if it's 100 degrees or 98 degrees in Arizona and you're a little older, and you are going to be plumb wore out. That's just that's just the way it's going to be, right? And you may struggle shooting a little bit. So they were shooting, and a couple different things happened, and I don't know the exact sequence of events, but I know they were shooting. It must have been that first time, and the man had exerted himself, chopping his way through the brush to get out to the range, and so he's already a little shaky, and that just made him more shaky. And I wasn't there, so I don't know how bad he was shaking, but he said the instructor wouldn't let him shoot because he was too shaky, and he was making her nervous because he shook so bad. So I think they met with them again, and when they went out there, and I don't know, I know this is not possible, right? So when people shoot a gun, I can tell you if their gun is dirty or not by the way it's acting, right? A lot of times it'll jam. You can tell by looking at it. The slide gets tough, right? There's a number of things for a gun jamming, but sometimes it's because it's dirty. More often than not, it's because it's dirty or it's a new gun and the cold weather is setting in. Well, this instructor told them one day they were out there shooting that they needed to stop shooting. We're done with the lesson. We're going to cut the lesson short because I can tell by the shape of your bullet holes on your target that your gun is dirty. Your gun is dirty. It's making it so it's not accurate. And I can tell by the way your holes look, by the shape of the holes, by the shape of the bullet holes that the bullets are making on this target when they impact it. So we're done for the day. What? That's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. I mean, there's no way. There's no way. Who's that good? Nobody is that good. Nobody is that good. Right? Absolutely insane. And it's funny to me. So in my eyes, is the sign of an instructor that needs a little bit of help, right? In my mind, I wasn't there, but I'm thinking it was hot. The lesson was going too long, or all of a sudden she needed to have a short lesson for some reason, or something was happening that she couldn't control, right? Maybe she didn't know how to adjust something, the grip, the stance of something. Maybe they weren't shooting accurately, and she was like, I'm done. I can't figure this out. So she said, we're done. Your guns are dirty. I can tell by the shape of the holes and the targets that your bullets are leaving, that your gun's dirty, and we're done. I'm like, what? What? And another thing that they told me, she said, we were talking in my class. They were talking about defending themselves. And we were talking about center mass. And we were talking about why we shoot at center mass and where in center mass do we shoot. And the wife of the couple that was taking class from me, she's like, well, they told us to just shoot them in the stomach. Shoot them down low in the stomach. That'll stop them. I've never heard an instructor, okay, especially teaching some new people, shoot them down low in the stomach. Shoot them down low in the stomach. So that makes me think that these people, and they were new to shooting, right? They needed to tighten their fundamentals. They needed to work on their trigger press. I mean, I saw what they needed help with. That maybe they were shooting, and they were shooting low. And they were shooting low because they were jerking the trigger. They had a flinch that wasn't being addressed. That maybe that instructor didn't know what she was doing. Maybe that instructor couldn't address that, right? Had never encountered that before. And so maybe they were shooting low because of it. And so she was like, okay, I'm going to work this to my favor. I'm going to say, you guys, they were probably both saying, well, we're not hitting the bullseye. And she's going to say, no, you guys are doing great. You'd be shooting the bad guy in the stomach, and that's where you want to shoot him. Was that said? I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my brain and rack my brain around a reason why she would tell him you need to shoot the bad guys in the stomach. And I think it just was another handy excuse. Just like I can tell your gun is dirty, we need to quit the lesson. I can tell your gun is dirty because the shape of the hole that your 9mm rounds are making in the target. Honestly. So they're shooting low. She doesn't know how to fix it. She doesn't know what they're doing. She can't explain shit. So she says, no, you're hitting him just fine. You're hitting him in the stomach, and that's we encourage people to shoot him in the guts, in the stomach. That is not right. That is not right. And it's just when you think it's done, okay, as I am teaching this couple the fundamentals, and I'm teaching them how to line up the sights, and I'm teaching them about the grip and how to press the trigger, the guy looks at me and he's like, she didn't tell us any of this stuff. I said, she didn't tell you how to line up the sight? No, not like this. She didn't tell you how to do the grip? Nope, not at all. In fact, I bit myself with the slide when I was there. I'm like, I'm thinking, what did she teach you? But in their eyes, God bless them, in their eyes, they are very happy with her. And meanwhile, I can see everything that she's done wrong or didn't do. And in my mind, I don't care if you're certified or not, and I think she is. I don't care if you're certified or not. You are not a good instructor. You need help. You need help. Now, this was down in like Mesquite, Nevada, so it was on the border down there. I took a class down there, not from her. I took it from another company, the TPC, that came in from out of state, and we were on a different range. This people was on a private ranch. But my gosh, I tell you what, if you are a firearms instructor, you need to know the ins and outs. You need to know the fundamentals. You need to know what to look for. You need to know how to troubleshoot. And yes, some of this you can learn all this without actually teaching in class, but some of it you kind of learn by experience, right? But from what this instructor, this lady, this woman was telling these students, she had no clue. She had no clue, right? She had no clue. It was absolutely just, I don't know, man. Just be careful who your instructors are. I tell you what, they told me that she had another person helping them. And, well, they know what they're doing because the person helping them is an older gentleman, and he was like on the LAPD SWAT team. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking in my brain, well, Mr. SWAT team, if he was there helping, he wasn't doing a very good job of helping because she was doing a shit job of instructing, and he just let it go. That's the way I see it. But, God bless these people. They're calling her again. They want to go back down and have more lessons. So maybe she's going to say some stuff about me. I have no idea. And another thing from what they said, I just remember this from what they said. that she was having. I don't know how far back she was having them stand when they shoot, but people are very surprised when I'm only having people back like, 5-6 yards, right, from the target. And why do I do that? Because you need to be closer when you shoot. Well, I probably have them stand closer than that. When someone is new, you teach them close. Once they get a good grasp, and they can use the fundamentals appropriately, then you move them back further. That's the way you do it. But I don't even think she was doing that. So different styles, yeah, and I understand that not everyone's going to do the teach and instruct the exact same way. But I tell you what, she was flat out lying to him. She was flat out lying to him because I just don't think she knew, honestly, and I don't think she's fit to be an instructor. And I know that sounds bad, me talking trash on other instructors, but I mean, she's not local. But when you mess with a student that much and you give them that much false information, and you still make it so they talk about you like you're some God's gift to the firearm community, which you are not, then I get that upsets me, right? That disgusts me was what it does, but that upsets me. So if you're a firearms instructor, you're a new one, go out and learn. Maybe take some people out, some people who know what they're doing, and just say, hey, why don't you be my students today? Come out, do some shooting. Let me run like a practice class, like a test class, and we'll see what I can pick up on. And you can help me out, right? And critique me a little bit, and that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're gonna grow. So, I tell you what, I've been thinking about that one all week, to be honest with you. So, anyhow, let's move on. Let's move on to something else. Let's talk about my next favorite subject, the NRA. So if everyone listens to this, you guys know how much I love the NRA, right? In fact, I love them enough that even though I'm a certified instructor from them, well, we'll see how long I'm a certified instructor from, through them, because I don't know. They may yank my certifications, but I just have a feeling if I keep sending them money, because they're really big about money. In fact, they need money. They're hemorrhaging money right now. That if I send them money, I guess what? I think they're probably going to keep me on board. But the NRA is going through all kinds of lawsuits. I mean, they, to a certain extent, I won't say they embezzled money, but got Wayne LaPierre with $30,000 suits, and we've gone through all that. I don't want to rehash that. But I tell you what, I watched over the past few years when this first started happening, and I was like kind of pulling away from the NRA. In fact, I went as far as to take their name off of everything I do except for the NRA instructor certification that I have. I took it off everything. I don't mess with the NRA, nothing. Their base, the people, their members that would pay, were at first it was like, yeah, some people would say, yeah, the NRA is trash. We're getting away. They're compromising. They're not doing what they say they're going to. None of this stuff. But they still had some diehards, right? The lifetime members. And they'd be like, oh, no, the NRA, man. Yeah, the NRA. They got the stickers in the truck. They got the hat. They got the keychain and the pocket knife and everything else, right? Well, over the last couple years, within the last few years, those people have started to fade and wane just a little bit, right? I get older gentlemen in there, probably been lifetime members since they were 20 years old, and they're like, yeah, the NRA is trash, man. The NRA is absolute trash. Well, there has been some audio that has been leaked from the NRA. Now, this goes back quite a while ago. This was after the Columbine shootings, and the NRA was getting ready to have one of their big NRA meetings or conventions, and they were discussing how to proceed because Columbine had happened, and they were discussing how to proceed. But then they ventured into referring to their members and kind of referring to them pretty in a derogatory type manner. And it kind of lets you know kind of exactly what they think of their members. And that maybe this whole aspiration of they're just in it for the money and they don't give 2 cents about what you think, and they want the money, and they're not going to necessarily stand up for your rights like you think. And that'd be why they go ahead and said, take your bump stocks and this and that. And They haven't showed up, and they're in the middle of all these lawsuits now. Okay, I think the NRA was a good thing at one point. I don't think it is now, but let me go ahead and play the audio clip before I go ahead and just butcher it, and just listen to how they refer to their members.
Mack is the Washington investigative correspondent for NPR, author of the new book, Misfire, Inside the Downfall of the NRA. And he joins me now. Tim, I want to go back to this incredible tape you acquired of that conference call. And just take us through a little bit of the context. I've listened to the longer stretches of it, and it is just remarkable to hear them in real time working through their crisis PR. What's the context there, and what ultimately did they decide?
So just to set the scene, and you've done a really great job of doing that, the NRA was planning to hold its convention just a little over a week after what turns out to be the shootings at Columbine. And so they scramble onto this conference call, all sorts of executives and officials and lobbyists and strategists, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And as you point out, they propose different approaches, a softer tone. They think about canceling their convention entirely. They suggest, well, maybe there can be a victims fund. But they kind of eventually land on what they ultimately decide after Columbine, but also has echoes for many, many years to come in the mass shootings that are sadly going to become more frequent after Columbine. And that is, if they concede anything, that's kind of accepting responsibility. Right. That if they step back, there's some level of complicity there. And that's what you hear them kind of come to over the course of these hours of tapes inside the room.
I want to play another part of this tape, because one of the things that I think the NRA would say about people like me or people in the quote liberal media is that you elites, you look down on good, red-blooded, God-fearing Americans who love their Second Amendment rights. You have sort of condescension towards them. So I want to play you the NRA lobbyist and former President Marion Hammer, and they're deciding, well, maybe we can kind of, do a half measure here. We take down the exhibit hall. We don't do part of the conference. We let the members meet. And she makes the point, oh no, if you do that, you're gonna have a problem. Listen to what she says.
If you pull down the exhibit hall, that's not going to leave anything for the media except the members meeting. And you're going to have the wackos with all kinds of crazy resolutions, with all kinds of dressing like a bunch of hillbillies and idiots. And it's going to be the worst thing you can imagine.
Again, this is Mary.
So there they are. So that's Marion Hammer, I believe he's going to say, and she was the I think the residing president at the time. He'll correct me in just a minute. But she just called the members hillbillies and hicks and idiots, the people that pay the dues, the people that pay the dues, that pay those people's salaries, pay the dues to the NRA to keep the NRA afloat. She called them hicks and hillbillies and idiots. And if you heard in the background, other people in the background that were on that call were laughing. They thought it was funny. No one said, hey, you shouldn't say that. They just let it go, and we will carry on.
Marion Hammer, she is the former president of the NRA, discussing her own members and saying the problem with taking away the exhibit hall is then you will then just spotlight our own members, who she describes as wackos dressing like a bunch of hillbillies and idiots.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable and shocking to see the NRA's top officials express privately what they think about some serious portion of their members. The NRA right now is in a lot of trouble. I'm sure there are a lot of NRA members today who are hearing these private thoughts about who they are and what they represent. A lot of NRA members are already really upset with all these reports of millions of dollars worth of corruption in the executive level of the NRA, led by Wayne LaPierre and other senior officials. I'm sure they're not happy to hear what's being said about them behind the scenes.
Final point here. You write in the book, and by the way, I got a chance to go through part of the book today. It is fantastic. I've always admired you as a reporter, Tim, and it's really great work. People should pick up the book. The sort of Columbine and then Sandy Hook. And then afterwards, you get this trajectory. The NRA used to be like the ethanol lobby. And the ethanol lobby is like, hey, we don't care your politics. If you roll with ethanol, you roll with us. If you're down with subsidizing ethanol, like, we're cool with you. We're not giving you any vision for American society other than ethanol subsidies from the government are good. The NRA used to be pretty focused on specific gun issues. It has morphed into a totalizing right-wing vision of the world. And you make the argument in the book that Sandy Hook was the inflection for that.
Absolutely. After Sandy Hook, the Republicans and conservatives are really the only target audience for the NRA. They kind of dispense with what has for a long time before that been a really important strategic partner, those moderate Democrats who would support gun rights and the NRA. After Sandy Hook, the NRA kind of rebundled itself as a quote unquote freedom organization, one that really doubles down on the culture war. It's not just about guns anymore for the NRA. It's about being the organization standing between the government and you, and between, people who want to take away your freedoms and you. That marks a huge shift for the NRA and ultimately leads them to a place of strategic peril. I mean, today, the NRA is in an enormous amount of financial and legal trouble. I think a lot of it stems from that decision after Sandy Hook.
Tim Mack, the book is called Misfire. I really, really recommend it. Thank you so much for taking some time with us tonight.
So, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? Like I said, we just talked about they're calling you names, they're calling their members names. But if you look at the end, and I know this is, from a liberal. This was a liberal. We heard from a liberal here, right? A left-leaning, probably somewhat anti-gun, and the guy who wrote the book. But I mean, I'm actually kind of interested in the book, not for the anti-gun sentiment, but for the NRA, because they're right. They went from protecting your rights, your gun rights, to all of a sudden being this big thing of freedom. I'm the one standing between you and the government. Look at us. They got big. They got rich. They got greedy. They got corrupt. And that's what happens, right? You have a grassroots organization and they get big and they get greedy and they get corrupt. And then you got, like I said, Wayne LaPierre buying $30,000 suits and they're staying at the best, whatever. And now they're getting sued because all this stuff, right? This mishandling of funds, and they need to like clean out the rot, clean out the bad stuff, and possibly they could come back. But it's really interesting because I'm on Facebook with a few people, and I don't know how some of these people actually kind of friended me on Facebook, but they did. And one of them is the head of the NRA for a certain state, and I'm not going to name the state, but this gentleman would post pictures just recently, within the last couple months, right? They went to like some national NRA meeting, and it was like some kind of planning meeting or something. They went to this meeting, and he's posting pictures of where they stay, and it's pretty nice, and that's okay. It wasn't, extravagant nice, but then they went to this dinner and he's posting pictures of what they're eating and, fancy octopus and squid and this really high-end expensive meals. And I'm just like, really, man? That's people's, that's other people's money, man. They gave you money to move forward and to protect their rights. And you're taking a bunch of other people, there may be heads of the states for you, but you're taking them out and you're whining and dining them and giving them expensive meals, man. Bring someone in to cater it. Have some chicken, have a steak, but you don't have to have these big, high-priced, fancy meals. It just kind of looks bad in light of everything that's going on. So that's my thoughts on the NRA, people. You guys, if you've listened for any amount of time, you know and you understand. And I don't know if you understand, but you know where I'm coming from. You know how I feel. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Make sure you get that little piece out. The NRA's calling their members names. Let's talk about the next big story, right? The next big story that's been going on all week is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I don't know if you've been following this or not, but it's pretty interesting. And I got a couple of audio clips here. One of them is by a guy by the name of, I'm looking here, Gary Gutfeld. Now, he's like a political humorist. And so I'm going to play, 4, 5, 6 minutes of him. He's talking about what's going on, and he tries to be a little funny, and you may laugh at the jokes, and you may not. He sides with Kyle in the whole deal. So at least he's kind of on our side to a certain extent. But I'll play him a couple clips from him, and we will discuss, because I don't know that. Well, I'm always a little different from everyone, and I feel a certain way, and I've got certain thoughts, and they may differ from a lot of the listeners to the podcast. So I'm anxious. I don't know if I'm anxious, but I will share them with you. But let's take a listen to Gary Guttenfeld, and we'll see what he has to say.
There's a trial going on for Kyle Rittenhouse, but it seems to be collapsing like Brian Stelter after doing 2 jumping jacks. A quick recap. It began with the police shooting of a violent knife-wielding felon in Kenosha, Wisconsin back in August 2020. Following 3 days of riots and property destruction, or what CNN would call peaceful protests, Rittenhouse traveled to Kenosha armed with a rifle, publicly stating his mission was to protect businesses and victims. In the ensuing melee, he shot and killed 2 people and wounded a third. The state of Wisconsin alleges he's a murderer. His defenders and anybody with an IQ over 15 describe it as self-defense. And if you listen to the clueless prosecution, they're pretty much proving it was self-defense too. I haven't seen someone this inept in court since Michael Avenatti. As legal expert James Gagliano in the New York Post points out, with video footage from the scene and witness accounts, murder remains an impossible charge to prove. Now, I've not watched much of the actual trial. I don't have time, what with having 2 hit shows and my night job as a bouncer at JoJo's Leather and Latex Tea House, where I met the judge. So let's see how the media portrays Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
Rittenhouse is basically what you would have had in a school shooter. He was going out to shoot people.
Just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, a white, Trump-supporting, MAGA-loving,
who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
It's amazing how they can sound exactly the same, but uniquely stupid in their own way. Especially that last guy. There's something wrong with him. But if I didn't know any better, I think they were all actors working from the same script. One where they started with the ending, then changed every other word to racist. They're more predictable than a Three's Company marathon. But here's something from my favorite CNN legal analyst.
What kind of idiot 17-year-old gets a giant gun and goes to a riot? He has no license. He has no training. He thinks he's going to scrub graffiti off with his AR-15. I mean, the stupidity of this is like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot went wrong.
That's a kick. Tubin said you have to be more responsible before you whip something out. But he should know if you point something at people, there's a chance it'll go off. What a dip. Anyway, meanwhile, an ABC News summary focused on the lone survivor of Rittenhouse's actions, like he was some Navy SEAL hunted by the Taliban, rather than pursuing Rittenhouse. It was a great narrative until you get to the last few graphs of ABC's coverage, and you find this.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
That was absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you guys ever caught that clip, but absolutely, that's absolutely a beautiful moment in that trial when that guy pretty much admitted to exactly what he did, and in roundabout way deserved what he got.
Whoops. So the guy wounded by Rittenhouse admits he was pointing his gun at Rittenhouse when he was shot. That's no tiny detail. If someone walks towards me with a gun drawn, it's either a threat or I've wandered into Dana Perino's yard. Look at the prosecutors when the story didn't go as planned. It's the same reaction my doctor has when I remove my pants. This trial blew up in their faces like an Antifa-made pipe bomb. Maybe they should have worn masks. But forget the laughable prosecution. What's concerning is how the media portrays the actual facts. The witness, Gage Groskrautz, lied about having a gun, then admits he pointed a loaded gun at Rittenhouse. Gage which is a bad name to have in a firearms case. It's like being named Glock or Caliber or Alec Baldwin. He turned out to be a terrible witness for the prosecution. But that's not how the media is covering it. To them, it's not self-defense at all. It's got to be murder, open and shut. Because as usual, they are as crooked as an Auntie Anne's pretzel with scoliosis. So if Rittenhouse is found not guilty, how will the activist class react who were spoon-fed the false media narrative? Let's put it this way. Home Depot is going to have a run on plywood from small business owners. It's almost as if the media wants to prime the rioters to think Rittenhouse got away with murder. And why? Well, it keeps them from ever admitting they're wrong. They run from facts like Hunter Biden runs from a baby mama. But it guarantees more violence, which they see as restorative justice and ratings, too. Brian Williams picked the wrong time to retire. Fact is, it was the media's embrace of the riots while condemning the police that led to more unbridled violence. And when there's no law enforcement, who fills that gap? I'll give you a hint. It's not social workers or mental health experts. It's people like Kyle Rittenhouse. It was the media's emboldening of criminality they deemed necessary to punish our evil racist society. And cowardly politicians responded with policies that sponsored this unsafe world. So why wouldn't some citizens step up to protect others? Who else, if not you? Rittenhouse and others like him, that's who. When you leave people with no options, this is what you're going to get. So maybe Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. But how did the media act? Well, they're not on trial. But if they were, it would take a jury 5 minutes to bring in a verdict of guilty.
Welcome tonight. Okay, sorry about that. I kind of should have cut that off a little bit sooner there. But so there you go. I mean, that kind of tells you about how the trial is going. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on this whole Kyle Rittenhouse deal. Now, we talked about it when it very first happened, and I'm going to bring it up again. Honestly, just the way I look at it is he shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there. His mom should be to blame. The gentleman, well, his mom actually loaded him up and dropped him and his AR-15 off. Okay, he was there earlier, helping clean up some graffiti on a car lot, I believe. And the gentleman who owned it was a family friend, and he actually invited Kyle to come back and help protect his lot. Kyle is 17 years old. Kyle shouldn't have been there. Kyle's mother shouldn't have allowed it. Who allows their 17-year-old kid? I have a 16-year-old son. I would never allow him to do something like that, right? You just don't do that. You ask an adult, okay? You ask an adult to do that. You don't ask a 17-year-old kid to do it. But he was there, regardless, I guess, of how he got there, which he shouldn't have been there. He was there. And what happened. And he was attacked, and he had to defend himself, right? He was in a defensive situation, a defensive encounter. And it was in my mind, is a clean-cut case of self-defense. And I think that he should get off. He was defending himself. I think the trial should go in his favor. That's where I'm at. He shouldn't have been there, but he was. He took defensive action to save his own life, which is, you can see it, right? It's on video, and he did a great job at it. And he defended himself, and that's a clear, clean-cut case of self-defense. I still don't think he should have been there. But it is what it is. He was there. He's good to go. Now let's back up again. So why was he there? Why did his mom drop him off with his rifle? What was he really doing there, right? He said he was there to lend first aid to people that needed it. Yeah, that's BS. That's not why he was there, right? He was there to supposedly defend the car lot, right? He shouldn't have been there. But here's the thing. He was also, I read an article earlier on, that he had also attended, he liked law enforcement. He was a fan of law enforcement, which is fine. Be a fan of law enforcement. I don't care. I think he had an interest in being a law enforcement at one point. And enough so that he entered it was a citizens, or I don't know if it was youth or a citizens law enforcement style academy that the office, the precinct in his area had set up. He had attended that. So was this Kyle? Was Kyle was he like a blue line law enforcement LARPer, maybe? And he was there and he was going to protect and bring justice? I don't know. I don't think he set out to actually use his gun, but he put himself in that situation. So much that he was in an area that law enforcement, they didn't even want to be there. Mostly law enforcement was not in that area. In fact, that after he had his encounter and he shot someone, he approached a cop car, and the officers in the cop car pepper sprayed him because he was approaching them, right? They pepper sprayed him before he could explain what had happened. And then they drove off. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to get out of the car. They freaking pepper sprayed him and drove off. And then later on, his mom had to drive him to a local police station so he could tell them what had happened. If the law enforcement doesn't want to be there, there's no reason for a 17-year-old kid armed with an AR-15 to be there. His mom needs to be held responsible, and I believe the guy that invited him there, the guy that owned that dealership, he needs to be held responsible as well. So I've gotten one more audio clip from the same guy, and this is from Gary Guttenfeld, I don't know how you say it, but he was on the Fox News called the Fox the Five, and he had something else to say. And where are we at here? Is it that one? I don't know which one this is now. I don't know. I think it's this one right here. Let's play it and find out.
Kyle's victims, the two dead guys, deserved better from the government, but they didn't deserve better from Kyle. He did the right thing. He did what the government should have done, which was to make sure these dirtbags, these violent, disgusting dirtbags, weren't roaming the streets. It is clear they were looking for blood. One of them, Joy Reid, saluted them. She said, oh, they were heroes out there. She tweeted this. She left out conveniently the part that one of them shouted the N-word while twisting a chain, and that he had abused 4 to 5 kids, and the other one was beating women. She just left that out. To your point about the fact that the media has to leave these things out, because if they did include it, their narrative would be gone. So the bottom line is, all Rittenhouse did was fill the void that the government left open. Those two people never, ever should have been on the street, and it forced citizens to become the police.
Okay, so there's so much to talk about after hearing that clip, okay? First of all, let's say this. I don't believe Rittenhouse is a hero at all. I think he was in an unfortunate situation. He was attacked. He defended himself. I would not make that kid out to be a hero. Okay? I would not say that I don't think anyone should say, hey, look, the government's not stepping in. We need to come in here. We need to rid the streets of these vermin. Should those guys, they had rap sheets, they had guns, they weren't supposed to, they were felons. Should that have happened? No. Should the government have taken care of that? Yes. Right? They shouldn't even have been out there. But here's the thing, and I teach this in all my classes, in my concealed carry permit classes for sure, and if it comes up in the other classes, we talk about it. And I know this wasn't a concealed carry permit application, but if you were going to carry a firearm, which Kyle did, that rifle, that AR-15, right, he had every right to have, I guess, but if you're going to carry a firearm, you do not go looking for trouble. You should not go to places where you think you might have to use it. You should avoid those places, right? Avoid a situation where you're going to have to use a firearm. Carrying a firearm, a rifle, a handgun, whatever it might be, it should make you, avoid those situations, and it should make you politer, and you need to have your situational awareness. You do not want to have to use your gun. You don't go looking for trouble. You don't find the biggest, baddest, nastiest street. You don't go attend the riots. You don't ship yourself down to Portland to fight Antifa. You don't do any of that, okay? You just don't. Yet, that is what Kyle did. He never said that he showed up to fight people, and maybe he didn't, but he put himself in harm's way so much that where he was going, he felt he had to take his rifle. You don't do that. You don't do that at all. Law enforcement didn't even want to be there, in as much as they pepper sprayed him and then drove off. He should never have been there. He made a bad choice. His mom made a bad choice. His friend who invited him over there to protect his business made a bad choice. Unfortunately, we saw Kyle break down on the stand. Fake or not, I don't care. The boy took 2 lives. Injured someone else, took 2 lives. I don't wish that on anyone. I do not wish that anyone to ever take a life. I never have, and I don't want to. If you are looking to take a life, carrying a gun is not for you. So now, because Kyle was in that situation that maybe adults in his life put him in or allowed him to make a horrible choice to be in, and they dropped him off, he has to live with the fact that I don't care if the people are horrible people and they're meaning to do you harm. You don't know how you're going to feel if you take a life. And it obviously affected him greatly. The situation did, right? He has to live with that now. And I sure hope to hell his mom and that guy that invited him there, they are responsible for that as well. They should have to deal with that as well. They ruined Kyle's life, right? They ruined Kyle's life. They should take a part in that as well. That's where I stand on that. That's clearly where I stand on it. He shouldn't have been there for all the reasons I mentioned, but he was there. He defended himself. He did it well. And I think it was a good shoot. I really think it was a good shoot. And it was obvious that he defended himself. But he is not a hero. We should not make him out to be a hero. We need to be careful, right? We need to stand up when we need to stand up. But you don't need to take your firearms and run directly into harm's way, whether it be a riot, whether it be looting, whatever it is. You need to not to take your firearm and run that direction. You are not law enforcement, okay? And you shouldn't do that. And I'm afraid that stuff like this is going to empower people, and there are some people that might be a little unhinged or people that are looking to use their firearms. This is going to empower them to go out and do so. And people are going to get hurt, or people could get hurt. This is a fine line we're walking here, a very fine line. And we need to be very, very careful. So in my mind, Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero. And in that last clip I played, I mean, the guy saying he's a hero. He took care of the scum that the government wouldn't. He is encouraging people to go out and take out the vermin, take out the bad guys. That's not what we do, people. It's not what we do. And that is a horrible statement to even make, a horrible idea to even put out there. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes, and it'll be interesting to see how this case turns out. But I guess we'll find out, I think Monday. I think Monday is the closing argument. So we'll find out next week sometime. But until then, thank you for joining the Patriot Defense Podcast. As always, I do appreciate it. As always, share this with and we were not on YouTube Live tonight, but share the podcast to your family and friends. Thanksgiving's coming, right? Christmas is coming. You could give this to them for Christmas. It's free. Say, hey, let me borrow your phone for a minute. Plug it into their phones, hit subscribe, say, I just gave you a gift for Christmas. That's what you're getting. Go ahead and do that. Post it on your social media. I would appreciate it. If you want a chance to be entered into a raffle to win a Patriot membership at Front Sight in Pahrump, Nevada, which entitles you to go out there and take a certain number of classes for free as many times as you want, go ahead and sign up as a Patreon. I'll put the link in the show notes. And not only are you going to get entered in for that raffle, you have to get entered in by the end of the year. Not only will you be entered into that raffle, but you'll get some free instructional videos I put up there every month. Occasionally, I'll throw up an extra podcast. I got more videos coming probably in the next week. And it's just kind of fun. Join and get those videos. That would be absolutely fantastic. Sometimes on the podcast, I talk about different things, grip, stance, drills, that kind of thing. And I throw up some instructional videos for the patrons, and they get a chance to check those out. And you can only see those if you're signed up, though. So sign up. It's like $5 a month. It's cheap. If you want to support the podcast that way, I really appreciate that. If you can't afford $5 a month, I get that. I mean, times are tough, man. The price of turkeys are going through the roof. I alone am doing like $150 in fuel a week in my truck, so I know the price of gas is through the roof as well. So at the very least, if you share this with your family and friends, I would appreciate it. If you got any comments or questions, you can call me. You can text me. Area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. And find us on Facebook under Patriot Defense. And until then, I will be back on here next weekend with another show. Thanks for joining us. Bye.